Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Thank you all for being patient. How's everybody doing? So, I might have to tend to chickens, just forewarned. Hopefully not, but just in case, I just want to let you guys know the rooster's been kind of loud today. But I'm going to go ahead and just get right into it because I know how people are about silent pauses and stuff. So, I'm going to try and just not stop and look at the chat while I'm doing this, so there's no interruptions. So if for some reason you do have any questions, maybe just hold them till the end. For me, anyways, if you have any questions, and that way I'll be able to maybe answer some of them for you guys. Let me know first before I start if you guys can hear me. Do I need to talk louder? Told you. We're in 2 minutes in and he's already crowing. I never knew that chickens were so needy. No, it's cool. I love them. They're awesome animals. It's actually not too bad when he crows, when he's not like right outside my window. It's almost kind of like white noise, almost like relaxing, because it's kind of like in the distance. But when he's right next to my window, it's, well, you know. And his name is Buddy, by the way, not Rusty. Rusty is my cat's name. Okay, so hi to everybody that's in the chat. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to go ahead and try to get started. Okay, so actually, before I get started, I did want to mention something. So we all know that there's been quite a bit of, I don't want to say drama, but going on with YouTube and a lot of hate. And okay, I'm sorry, you guys, 1 second, okay? Okay, sorry about that. It's so funny. They're so smart because he knows where my room is and he'll stand just right out. I don't know if he has like anxiety separation issues or what, but and then I'll go outside and I'll check on him and I'll be like, "Hey, what's going on? Why are you being so loud?" And he'll just be, you know, completely quiet. And I'll be like, calm down, stop that. What do you need? Don't be so loud. And and I'll shut the door. And the minute I shut the door, he'll crow. So yeah, he's funny. So okay, let's try this again. I don't know if he's gonna be quiet. I apologize if not. Hopefully it's not too loud. It's a good thing he's a little munchkin. So what I was saying before is there's a lot of, or not a lot of, but a few channel creators that are being attacked for simply having different views and opinions, or even because they, associate themselves with certain channel creators that aren't liked by everyone for different reasons. But no one deserves to be attacked for simply having different opinions, and especially not their families. So I know this has been going. I know this has been going on for a while, but yesterday I witnessed firsthand the effect that this harassment was having on a certain channel creator in particular. And I just wanted to commend this person for having the bravery and the strength to go on this other channel and defend themselves. And not only that, but have the ability to keep it together as people continue to say absolutely horrific things about this person. And I don't know many people that would be able to do that, myself being one of them. And I could really hear the hurt in their voice. And I felt really terrible for this person. And although I could tell that they were hurting, I could also see that they're strong at the same time. And this particular person admitted that they're not perfect and they make mistakes just like everybody else. But the fact that they realize that and are able to come out and admit to that, it really shows their character. And I just wanted this particular person to know that they do have more support than they might think. And I really respect them for doing what they did yesterday under the circumstances. And it takes a lot to do that. So I just wanted to let that person know. I think you guys probably know, as information gets around rather quickly on YouTube, um, who I'm referring to, and I hope they know as well. So I just wanted to say that. And before I start, once again, I want to clarify and make it known that it's not my intention to, once again, be disrespectful towards anyone that has been affected by this case in one way or another. However, I've come to learn that you can't please everyone, and the reason why I started making videos is to spread truth. No matter how cheesy that sounds, it's the truth. So, unfortunately, the truth isn't for everyone, and some people are going to be offended by what I have to say. And I only ask that you have an open mind and do your best to just try to push your emotions to the side. Because if you can't find a way to do that, then this channel isn't for you, unfortunately. So now that that's out of the way, I just want to make just a few points, I guess. So just because, oh my gosh, that rooster, I tell you. Okay. See why it's so difficult for me to, to commit to one time? It's not all me, I swear. So just because I believe that the Watts case personally was an orchestrated event put on by our government and the powers that be in order to push an agenda or multiple agendas doesn't necessarily mean that all parties are guilty of purposely being malicious. There could be multiple reasons for why they may have played a part in the event. One example, maybe they were paid, maybe they were threatened, or maybe they were told that what they were doing was somehow beneficial to society in some way. Unfortunately, I don't have the answers for that as to why they would agree to be a part of something like this. But sorry, I got my eye on the rooster. I'm just waiting for him to do it again. And I'm waiting for him to do it, and you know that as soon as I start talking, he's going to do it again, right? Okay. So I don't have the answers as to why, certain people would agree to it. As I talked about in my other live, there's different people that there's the willing, there's the unwilling, there's the unknowing, unwilling that I talked about in my other live that I felt was really important to discuss. I know that it was kind of boring for a lot of people, but it's something that had to be done. Sorry. Sometimes presentations are boring, unfortunately. So whether they're willing or unwilling or unknowing and unwilling, there can be multiple reasons as to why they played a part in it. So again, I'm not accusing anybody of being malicious, as I don't know for a fact why they would do it. But again, keep in mind that there can be multiple reasons for why they would. Same goes for people that say, well, someone would speak out if this were all fake. Someone would definitely speak up. That's not necessarily true. There could be multiple reasons as to why people wouldn't be so quick to speak up about it. But what I do know for certain is that we've been lied to on a massive scale, and many people are not even aware of the deception. And the people that aren't aware of this deception are the ones that most likely watch and listen to what the mainstream media says without knowing that they are there to push, for the most part, an agenda or a narrative, I'm sorry, or an agenda, either one or both. However, I don't blame them for not knowing they're being deceived, because many of them are just trying to live their lives, go to work every day so they can support their families and put food on the table. The last thing they have time for is to decide what's real and what's not, and have to vet the information for themselves. But they do depend on the news to inform them of what's going on in the world without ever attempting to verify it, that what they're being told is in fact true. Some people that are aware of the deception are the ones in the, for instance, true crime community that have followed enough cases to know that things don't add up. And the true crime community is filled with a lot of intelligent people. And to be fair, maybe not so many intelligent people. But you really don't have to be intelligent to know that things don't add up with this case. Then you have the ones who immediately let their emotions get to them without ever thinking rationally or logically. They only think about how sad and how horrific the details are of the event without ever stopping to think how it's possible to fit two toddlers into an 8-inch opening, why there's no physical evidence, or how one man was able to kill his entire family without seeming to break a sweat. Those are the ones that the people behind these orchestrated events love, because they don't think rationally, they don't think logically, they just react, and they just react with their emotions, and that's how they pull people in. And then you have the people like myself that know we've been lied to on a much bigger scale than just poor investigative skills by law enforcement and government officials. And although I do know a little bit about true crime, conspiracies, false flags, and psyops are what I'm knowledgeable in. And in this particular instance, it just so happens that the area I am knowledgeable in falls into the true crime category. So that being said, if a person is not familiar with these types of things, it's more than likely they're not going to see them as easily. However, if you're aware of the patterns that they always use, they are, for the most part, easy to spot. Knowing these patterns and these characteristics will allow you to tell which future events are real and which ones are fabricated by the government in order to push an agenda or agendas. So if you go based off of the official narrative, it's understandable that people want justice for the victims and their families. However, the public also has a right to know why there are so many discrepancies and inconsistencies in the official narrative. If the state of Colorado is as transparent as they say they are, or that they claim to be, then why is it that we've been left with so many unanswered questions, and why do we have to find all the answers on our own? So the fact that we've been lied to and deceived, doesn't that also make us victims in a sense? So I understand the wanting justice for the victims, but what about justice for us? Just want to check chat and make sure everything is going okay. Do I don't know, do I have mods in here? I think I do. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not worried about it. So that was my little opener there. But now I want to talk about some of the many convenient and coincidental things in this case. Prepare for a Megan rant, okay? So if we look at some of the coincidences in the case, try to remember that as far as the story timeline goes, everything that was put in the discovery was put there for a reason and to essentially tell a story. So, for instance, do you think it's a coincidence that Kessinger just happened to be contracted to Anadarko, who just happened to start an affair with a guy whose pregnant wife was leaving for 5 weeks to visit family in North Carolina? Even though they pointed out how important the first trimester of their pregnancy is, and not just any pregnancy, but a high risk pregnancy at that. And isn't it also convenient that there were emails between Chris and Kessinger in order to corroborate how the affair began? But it's interesting because there's nothing before or after the emails. The emails are the only thing to substantiate that the affair even existed in the first place. And do you think it's a coincidence that we're told how Shanann was not feeling well in Arizona and even confided in her Thrive friends that her and Chris were having marital problems, which gave Nicole Atkinson a reason to be worried about her friends so quickly? But if you take all that out of the picture, and then all you have is a woman who probably doesn't feel well because she is pregnant and who also just got done traveling, not once, but twice, almost back to back, which means she could just simply be tired and wanting to get some rest and slept in. However, being pregnant and tired isn't a legitimate reason to call in a welfare check. Usually, someone has to have a pretty strong feeling that someone they know is in serious danger or the person's life is at risk for law enforcement to even consider doing the welfare check. Because if everybody called, on their loved ones, every time they didn't answer for, a couple hours, it would waste, the police officers or law enforcement's time when they could be somewhere else that's worth their time, if that makes sense. So to me, it's odd that law enforcement would even show up at the Watts house when they knew it had only been a few hours from the time that Nicole Atkinson dropped Shanann off at 1:48. Something else that's rather convenient is it a coincidence that Chris just happened to pick a day to murder his entire family, knowing full well that Shanann had a doctor's appointment and that the girls were supposed to be back for school that day? So why would he pick a day that people are expecting them to show up? And yet they want us to believe that Chris has a 140 IQ. Do you think it's a coincidence that Mike O'Rourke made it clear in a press conference that the only way Shanann could have left the house was through the garage? If the only way to enter or leave the house was through the garage, then that pretty much rules out, anyone being involved and only points to Chris. Because the last thing they want, if they're trying to push a narrative onto the public, is for people to think that others might possibly be involved. But they didn't want that. So they only made it possible for everything and all the circumstances to point to Chris. Because that's the official narrative. The official narrative is that Chris killed his family by himself without help. Do you think it's a coincidence that law enforcement never bothered to collect the footage from any of the CCTV street cameras? I've seen many instances where CCTV cameras, where the footage was used to solve cases. And isn't it rather convenient that the McDonald's CCTV camera only records inside and not outside? Or that the camera at the Lazy Dog that Chris and Kessinger allegedly went to only had live monitoring and didn't record? Everything that could substantiate the whereabouts of the people involved conveniently didn't work, or law enforcement didn't bother to look at it. If you haven't noticed already, again, everything is just so convenient in this case. Do you think it was a coincidence that Nate's camera just happened to be positioned just right so that it would catch Chris allegedly loading the bodies of his family into his truck? And yet, so convenient that it wasn't enough for those watching that you could see anything on it. So although it looks like he's loading something or doing something or loading something, we don't actually physically see him loading anything. And if anybody says that they can, I'm gonna have to call BS on that, unless they have some sort of different video that I haven't seen, because you can't see jack shit. And if anybody wants to argue with that, they can refer back to Rourke's statement about it, where he even admits that you can't see anything or any bodies on the camera footage. Anadarko has 400 cameras at their well sites. But we're told that there were no cameras at Survey 319 because it's an old well and all the resources from it were about to be dried up. So, do you think that was also a coincidence? I just find it rather convenient that nothing that could corroborate anything works. None of the cameras, no CCTV footage. The well that Survey 319 just happens to be an old well, and that's why there wasn't any cameras there to prove that Chris was even there in the first place. I'm not saying it like he wasn't there, that somebody else did it and he's innocent. I'm saying like that any of that we were told took place at all. Do you think it's a coincidence that Chris just happened to take his family to an oil site owned by the company that he works for, knowing that his truck has GPS? Law enforcement knew about the GPS on Chris's truck from the get-go. And not only that, but we know that Sandy made it a point to tell law enforcement that they needed to check Chris's GPS on his truck. So why didn't they go out to Survey 319 as soon as they had their suspicions about Chris? I mean, surely they would have seen the disturbed dirt where Chris allegedly buried Shanann. I mean, these law enforcement agents can't be that incompetent, can they? Do you think it's a coincidence that Chris never asked for a lawyer and agreed to do a polygraph test? Or that Tammy Lee and Graham Coder appeared to lead all of the conversations between them and Chris, and multiple times finished Chris's sentences for him? Say that 5 times fast. It was as if they were leading him the whole time. I mean, they go supposedly to Dodge in Wisconsin to what they claim to ask him questions and understand what happened from him, but yet they continue to lead and finish all of his sentences for him, pretty much. How are you supposed to get to know someone, or at least hear what the guy has to say, even if he is a liar, when you finish all of his sentences for him or lead? Makes no sense. And do you think that it's a coincidence that the phone call about the leak at Survey 319 just happened to come up during the fire stick meetup in the parking lot? And Chris just conveniently got the idea and volunteered to go to Survey 319 first thing Monday morning so that he could dispose of his family. Super convenient for Chris, don't you think? And do you think it's convenient, or coincidence, I should say, that Chris just is that stupid to leave not one but multiple items at Survey 319? And not only that, but scattered in all different locations. It reminds me of a really bad attempt at trying to stage a crime scene, or a really crappy way of making it look like there was any real evidence in the case. And not only that, but it also leads back to Chris being guilty. So if you notice, there's all this, convenient things that just leads right back to Chris. Some people might call it, he made stupid mistakes. I have to disagree with that. And is it also convenient that Chris somehow managed to take one life with his bare hands, move her from the house to the truck, into the truck, drive to Survey 319, take her out of the truck to the location where he allegedly buried her, dig a hole, put her in the hole, bury her, and all while his two children are still alive. Then he claims to have smothered the girls inside the truck, carried them one by one up 2 different flights of stairs, then somehow manages to get them both through 8-inch openings, change his clothes, drive back to his house without a speck of dirt on him, and all within a limited amount of time. Let's also not forget how convenient, I'm not sorry, not convenient, I have convenient on the brain. Let's not forget how difficult it is to not only lift dead weight, but to also do it multiple times at different heights and different distances. But I can't imagine that if he got all that done, let's say hypothetically he did it all by himself, that he would show up to the house as he did, all perky, running, and look like he just had fresh 8 hours of sleep the night before. Not looking at all disheveled or tired at all. I mean, if you really think about it, that's a lot of shit that he supposedly got done in a small amount of time. And I do think that the flight was actually delayed. So I think that it kind of screwed them over, because people did notice that Chris was running out of time. And that's going to happen in, these kind of events, because shit's bound to go wrong. Especially when you only have one chance to do it. So, do you think it's convenient that a man would plead guilty to murder when the prosecution had pretty much only circumstantial evidence on him? And if it was true that he supposedly did this to do all of this and kill his entire family to be with his mistress, why would he be so quick to just say, "Yep, I did it"? You think he would try just a little bit harder and probably, not plead guilty so quickly? I don't know, but that's just my opinion. Do you think it's a coincidence that the watch just happened to move across the country, drop everything, move out of a beautiful house, supposedly that they lived in, jump up and just move across the country to live in Weld County, which holds 90% of the oil in Colorado? Do you think it's a coincidence that Chris happened to murder his entire family around the same time that the oil company he worked for was at risk of losing millions of dollars? They were at risk of losing millions of dollars if a bill called Proposition 112 passed. So, roughly the same time that our narrative starts, or our story, I should say, around the time when Kessinger started working at Anadarko and they met, was the same time that these environmentalist groups were orchestrating to get this Proposition 112 passed, or in the process of it. So right around the same time, all this was happening, and we have our affair developing. We have Shanann in North Carolina. At the same time that was going on, they were trying to get this bill up on the ballot, which they succeeded. So, do you think it's a coincidence that Chris's hearing was moved to Election Day without any reason for it? Rourke never gave a reason for it. This would be the same day that voters would decide whether or not the fracking buffer zones would be moved back from 500 feet to 2,500 feet, which would take away about 80% of Colorado's oil resources from not only Anadarko, but all of the other oil and gas companies. And those are just some of the odd coincidences that have taken place in this case. I'm sure there are more that I've missed, and if I think of them, I will add them to the list. I'm just going to look at chat now. That was my presentation. So I know I asked you guys the whole question till the end, but I just wanted to look in chat and see if there's any comments that I can add to. Okay, so there isn't anything, then I'll just go on. What are we at? 45 minutes. I'm going to try and keep this one shorter today because I think the 2-hour ones are. I know that you guys like them because you guys can. You like them long so you guys can talk to each other and whatnot. But so again, since we're almost an hour into this, I want to clarify again for people that have just come in late or just getting here that it's not my intentions to offend anybody in any way, shape, or form. And no one's forcing anybody to listen to me. So if you don't want to hear it, then you don't have to, pretty much, you know? That's what's great about it. So one of the main questions that I get from, which is probably the most controversial one of them anyways, is do I believe that anyone died? I'm trying to think of how to word this. But here I go again, worried about offending people, which I just need to stop worrying about. But I can't help it. It's just my nature. Um, there's a number of reasons why I personally believe that even though false flags can have real victims, for this particular instance, I don't think that's the case. So one reason why I believe that is we just don't have the physical evidence that proves that. We have hardly any crime scene photos besides pretty much a hole in the ground and a couple of items that, dipshit left at Survey 319. So when I say crime scene photos, I'm talking about actual forensic evidence, like blood, hair, semen, skin, fibers, but there's nothing. Now, they did claim that there were hairs found at Survey 319 in the blonde hairs inside the inlet, but they didn't release them. They didn't release a photo. As far as I know, I haven't seen those photos. Then we have no autopsy photos. We don't even have a foot, a hand, photos of the, marks on Shanann's neck, no dental, no bone x-rays, pretty much no evidence. And like I said before, it's not that or I guess I can't speak for everybody, but I personally, I don't want to necessarily see pictures of victims that died in a horrific manner. That's not what anybody, I know, that's not what I, not anybody, that's not what I personally want to see. But if we did have those, and not that they couldn't fabricate them, but I mean, at least give us the benefit of the doubt, at least try to show that there's some sort of evidence, but they don't even do that. So the fact that there's no evidence is a huge red flag that there were any victims. And coming from a state that claims to be transparent when it comes to giving information to the public, well, doesn't appear that way. Then there's no actual murder scene. And there's no murder weapon, since Chris allegedly used his hands for everything. Now, they say that they did the bioluminescent test in the house, and I think on that survey 319 on the tanks, but to me, that's still all hearsay, because I could say that I jumped off of the Grand Canyon and survived. That doesn't mean anything, because just because I'm still here doesn't mean that I really did it. Maybe a bad example, but you get what I'm saying. And if it were a real investigation, that entire house would have been searched from top to bottom. And people wouldn't have been allowed to walk in and out as they pleased, throw their Starbucks, drink in the trash, touch everything. Like, it's just not realistic. Regardless if she was just missing or they were just missing at the time, you still have to take the proper precautions and assume that it could possibly be a murder scene or a potential murder scene. Then you have the video that I showed in the last live that I did, where Perez and Palencia, Officer Perez and Officer Palencia, are handling the evidence from Survey 319 as if they're taking out food from their sacked lunch. Two regular, they're not both Frederick, one's Longmont, I think, but two regular officers are not going to be handling evidence like that. Especially without a forensic analyst there or an evidence technician there supervising. You have Perez that's got gloves on, but we don't even know if that table was wiped down before he even got there. And then he has gloves on, but then he's on the phone with Baumhover. And we all know that cell phones are one of the most disgusting things ever with germs and bacteria. So what is the point of the gloves? What is that going to do if you touch a dirty cell phone that you've been handling, touch God knows what, and then use those same gloves to hang up the sheet that is supposed to be used in a quadruple homicide case? Then they don't even, after spilling the dirt all over the table, which I don't even know why they took the dirt out of the one bag in the first place. They should have just put it straight into the evidence locker. I don't know why they switched bags, but Who knows? Either way, they have all that dirt on the table. Palencia just wipes the dirt away in the trash or on the floor, and then they don't even bother to sanitize the table when he takes out the next evidence bag and puts Shanann's bra and underwear on it. And it boggles my mind because they do this all the time in these events. Like they're so sloppy, but they don't care. They don't care because they know that there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, there really isn't. I'm not trying to be negative as far as them being completely lackadaisical when it comes to everything. They know that really, what is somebody going to say, you know? And then another reason why I don't believe that they're real victims is because of the 8-inch hole thing. You have Cece, who I believe, and I think Dave G can correct me on this, or somebody. I always forget, but I think Cece in the discovery, it says that Cece was 10 or 10 and a half inches from her widest point. So I'm assuming from shoulder to shoulder. And if the opening to the hatch is 8 inches, then you have the lip inside, the small lip that's inside of the hatch that would, even if it's millimeters, it would still make a difference when you're trying to put a body down there that's bigger than the hole and not the same shape as a circle. I mean, physics just don't work that way. And even if, let's say, he did manage to put to fit them through the inlets, I would imagine that they would have a lot more injuries than just a couple scrapes on the hip, on their hip, and a scrape on their side of their head. I mean, you're talking 8 inches, trying to fit 10 and a half inches through less than 8 inches because of the lip inside the inlet. Another problem I have is in homicide cases, the coroner or the pathologist always has to do a full and complete autopsy. That means fully open. Sorry for the details ahead of time. If you don't want to hear this, then press mute or leave the video for a second. It's not that graphic, but so the full, I think it's like they call it a T-line opening is, when they open the entire body and drain all the fluids, everything like that. That's mandatory in homicide cases. And I know I'm going to hear people say, well, the autopsies were redacted. They were redacted. If they're so transparent and they're in, an open record state, then why are they redacting autopsy reports? To me, that's not transparent. The only thing that should be redacted from the autopsies are anything to do with the kids' medical records or Shanann's medical records, because those are protected by that HIPAA. But there's no reason why they can't show us a foot or x-rays or something to show that, like, no pun intended, but throw us a bone, like an x-ray or something that shows that There's actual evidence that people actually lost their lives. And when they don't show any evidence, that's one of those red flags that you need to look out for in the future. When they fail to show proof of any victims, huge red flag. And they also put, why I don't know, but in the discovery, they put the diagrams of the body diagrams in the discovery and didn't even bother to fill them out. I mean, why even bother put them in the discovery if you didn't even bother to complete them? It makes no sense. So, for example, Whitney Houston, her autopsy report was 41 pages long. Another example is, I don't remember her name, but she's the woman that got the gastro bypass surgery and ended up dying to complicate from complications on the surgery and during surgery. And hers was also about 40 pages long. So, where's the rest of the autopsies? And why are they not deemed for the interest or whatever their excuses they use every time for the public interest? No, you guys claim to be a open record state, sunshine state, transparent. Why release the amount of information they did and then leave so much out? It's because they only want us to see what they only choose to release what they want us to see and what fits the official narrative. I'm just looking at the chat. Hopefully everyone's behaving. And Mitchod, I appreciate your opinions, but you have to go. Sorry. I think we could probably assume that that Mitchell person is a certain someone we know. I always like to use like really like catchy names, or like, Mitchell Machad, who I've never seen before ever in anybody's chat ever. I appreciate them agreeing with my theories, though. That was nice of them. Okay, so what are we at? We're at an hour and 7 minutes. So another question that I get quite a bit is, if we notice all these inconsistencies and we feel like there hasn't been justice, then why aren't the victims' families trying to get justice for Shanann and the girls? Why are they so intent to silence everybody? Why are they trying so hard? Why are they trying to shut people up who are talking about a high profile case that they themselves went on Dr. Phil and publicized? So to say that is kind of, in my opinion, hypocritical. Again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but we're not going to get anywhere being respectful, to be honest with you, because people are still allowed to talk about what they want. And if you read YouTube's guidelines under harassment and bullying, nowhere does it say questioning inconsistencies is considered harassment or bullying of victims or anybody on social media. And people have said, well, you would think that they would appreciate us talking about it, and, well, maybe not necessarily me, but you would think that they would appreciate the many others that are trying to find the truth and trying their best to get justice for Shanann and the girls, because they know that things don't add up and something's up. Too many inconsistencies, too many discrepancies. So you would think that they would appreciate it. And granted, there are some people that are using the case to profit. However, there are people such as myself that have been covering this case for 2 years and have not made a penny. So I dare them to come at me with that, which there have been some that have said that, and I just thought that was hilarious. And let's not forget that there's people such as yourselves that are not channel creators that have spent their time looking for the truth and haven't gained anything from it. So again, why are they trying so hard to silence us? Because the same people that they are trying to silence and are accusing of bullying and harassment, as far as I know, I haven't seen any bullying and harassment or degrading of the victims. And now it's said that we can talk about the case, but we just can't talk about conspiracy theories, and we can't mention their names, which I'm not sure what that's about. But yeah, that's what they're asking of people, to not talk conspiracy theories. But if conspiracy theories are so ridiculous, then why not just laugh it off and say these people are ridiculous and they don't even know what they're talking about? We know the truth, so why do we care? There has to be a significant reason as to why they're trying so hard to stop people from talking about the case. And yeah, so what? It's been 2 years. Maybe if they didn't leave us with like so many unanswered questions and answered some of them for us, then we wouldn't have to be sitting here probably 2 years later trying to figure out what the fuck happened. It's like, hello, start answering some of our questions and maybe we'll shut up. How difficult is that? Doesn't seem that difficult to me. If they're the ones that know everything, not if the law enforcement are the ones that need to answer our questions for us. Because they're law enforcement. They're the ones with the answers, not us. And again, I know that a lot of people are emotionally invested in this case. And when innocent lives are taken, or we're told that they're taken, of course it's terrible. But as I said before, emotions are not facts. So unless one can learn to push their emotions to the side, even though I'm sure it's difficult, it's going to be really hard to find the facts and see the truth and see what's really going on here. So for the people that truly want the truth, even if it's not the truth that they wanted, they're going to find a way to do that. And I'm not trying to say that I know everything and that I know that everything that happened in the case. But when I see the same patterns happening in this case that happen in other areas that I am knowledgeable in, then I'm going to expose it. I'm going to show as many people that want to know the truth then those are the ones that are going to be willing to listen and not get upset and have an open mind. But that's how these psychological operations work. They make these events so horrific. And I know I've said this before, so if I sound like a broken record, I'm sorry, but I have to be. But they make them so horrific that, again, people just react. They just, oh my God, this is so terrible. But they just react and they don't think logically and they don't think rationally. And their emotions get in the way of everything. And that's the whole psychological part of this. You have Shanann's entire Facebook not released, but available, made public to the public for a reason. The purpose of it is to draw out people's emotions, people's emotions. It's all about emotions. Shanann pretty much recorded and posted every waking moment of her life, pretty much. From doctor's visits to Chris playing with the kids, everything. And by doing that, it allowed people, especially women, to relate to Shanann's trials and tribulations in her life with their own. And they almost felt as though they knew Shanann and the girls and Chris because everything was so public. So in a sense, it made people feel like they, were part of that family, in a sense. And the best way to control people is through fear and emotion. And not only that, but by watching these videos with Chris playing with the girls, it drew out anger in people after being told that he murdered his entire family. Just like Kessinger is going to bring out the rage in people. And it just gets regardless of its rage, sadness, whatever, it's still makes it so that people don't think logically and rationally. I'm just looking at the chat. Sean Hickman, what? I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean, my bottom line? And Kayla says, you would think the forensics would be completed even though Chris pled guilty to prove or disprove his words in NKs. I don't know when law enforcement started believing people with no forensic evidence. And great point. And yeah, that's the thing is people have continually said that, well, Chris pled guilty, so they stopped investigating. But the problem is they didn't even do a proper investigation in the 3 months that they had to investigate. And I'm not even going to go over all that because we'll really be here forever. But we know that they didn't even question Kessinger properly to even find out if she should be a suspect. And they claim that how important it was to receive her text messages, but they didn't even bother to attempt to recover them. And it's funny because you really don't need all this fancy mobile forensic technology to recover deleted text message these days. There are third-party apps that you can use. There's the cloud. There is something called resetting your Google password that she conveniently could not remember, and they never pressed her on simply recovering her password. Like, I'm still in shock that that whole situation went down with her and Kessinger and Matt Saylor in that room. She's like, I tried to recover it, but I can't remember. I can't remember these passwords. Something along those lines, right? I can't remember my password. And Matt Saylor, Agent Matt Saylor, right? The IT guy, we're led to believe this is the IT guy, the specialist dealing with phones. Who doesn't know much about Apple phones, so he can't help her. But this is supposed to be their IT specialist. Apparently, I know more about mobile phones and mobile forensics than Agent Matt Saylor, IT, knows, which is troubling, to say the least. And so instead of him pressing her and saying, okay, well, how about we try to reset it? We're here. Why don't we, there's ways to reset your Google password. Let's try that first before we go and have to download your phone and get you a new phone and all this, let's try that first. No, but instead, Agent Matt Saylor laughs and says, oh, it's okay, I understand. Well, there is one more thing we can try to try and get your text messages. There's one more thing. Wait, what? How about get on your phone that you have in your hand, go to where you're supposed to log into your Google, and where it says forgot password, click on that, put in your recovery email. Google's going to send you a recovery code to punch in. Put that in, put in your new password, whatever you want it to be. I recommend you use symbols and numbers so that it can't be easily cracked. But it's up to you. Put in your new password and let's see if we can get your synced text messages. Let's see if Google synced your text messages. Or better yet, let's see if, since you didn't delete everything off your phone, and you only deleted the content between you and Chris, and you didn't do since you didn't completely wipe out your phone, or a hard reset, then maybe your iCloud's still connected. Because I think I remember Kobach saying something about that. Yeah, I think he did. I think he said, yeah, so why don't we go ahead and check to see if your iCloud was on when all this was going on. No, instead, it's, ha, 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 that's okay. Oh, don't worry about it. It happens to people. You know, they forget their passwords, and apparently, you know, some people just aren't tech savvy, but God forbid I'm here and I'm an IT guy. I guess I can't help you with that. So that in general should piss people off. But they didn't even bother to attempt any other ways of recovering it. So let's say that they did try all those easier attempts to recover text messages, and they didn't work. Let's say that then they had to resort to going to using mobile forensic software. Well, any IT guy or mobile person that works with mobile phones, or definitely any mobile forensic analyst, should know that the only way to recover deleted text messages, I'm talking specifically text messages, not internet history, not browser history, whatever, deleted text messages. The only way you can do that with mobile forensics, if the other attempts failed, that they didn't try, you have to do a physical extraction on the phone. And not to mention the fact that she also willingly provided her passcode to law enforcement. They should have zero excuse as to why her deleted text messages were not recovered. Now, if she didn't willingly provide her password for law enforcement and they had to get a warrant and try to crack or jailbreak her phone to get through that, because Apple has a really how do I put this? Privacy policy with their customers. And so Apple will not necessarily help law enforcement get into a phone that is protected with a passcode. But like I said, she provided her passcode to law enforcement. So having to deal with all that and trying to jailbreak it and crack into it, and it's likely that it's not impossible. They could get into it and recover it, but it would be a hell of a lot harder to do if she hadn't given her password to them. So now that they have her password, they run the XRY software when she's in the interview with her dad. And I believe all they did pretty much was they just mirrored it. So all they did was copy the contents of her phone with the XRY software and transferred it to their machine, to the software. So it didn't take anything off of her phone. It just mirrored it and copied it to their software. So after doing that, they gave back her cell phone to her after running the XRY software. Why? I have no idea why, but they shouldn't have. So they get the information from her phone with XRY, transfer it to her, to their software, give the phone back to her. She's allowed to go home with her cell phone, do whatever she wants with it, delete more, figure out how to delete more stuff, use all this data. Because when you delete a message, just beware. I mean, if you guys delete messages, text messages off your phone, it's never actually deleted off the phone. It's not ever gone per se. So the only way that it gets deleted is when the phone needs to make room for more space or new data. Then it's going to overwrite the text messages. That's only if it needs the room or the space or the data to do it. Because when you delete text messages, it goes into something called the unallocated space. And so it's kind of like the catacombs of your phone, where it's really hard to find, but it's still there, if that makes sense. So knowing that she only deleted the content between her and Chris only days before she went in for her first interview, she would have had to use a lot of data to override those text messages, to have them overwritten. So therefore, law enforcement had everything in their favor to recover those text messages. They just didn't bother to do it. So in the discovery, and I did make a video on this, but it's one of the things that really bothers me about the case, is that they gave an excuse and didn't expect anybody to notice, I guess. I'm not sure, but I noticed. So their excuse in the discovery is that the Northern Colorado Forensics Laboratory did not have the necessary equipment, and this isn't word for word, it's close, but the necessary equipment to perform a physical extraction on any of the phones. Okay, well, that's a problem. Because, as I said just a little bit ago, the only way to recover deleted text messages is if you do a physical extraction. So it doesn't matter how many, if they did XRY, if they did Celebrate, if they did whatever, if they performed a million, extractions on her phone, if they didn't do a physical extraction, it's pointless. So they mentioned in the discovery that they did a logical extraction and an advanced logical. The logical extraction is the most simple and easiest way of getting information off a phone. So just pretty much anything that's not deleted, that somebody deleted. That's all the stuff that's going to be in the allocated space and not the unallocated space. The advanced logical is 2 extractions put into one to make it easier on them. But still, the advanced logical that they said that they did on Kessinger's phone with the XRY software and the Celebrate software is not going to recover her deleted text messages. Now, the reason why we got her history, her search history, the little bit of it that we did, just a little 5 or 6 searches she did, supposedly. The reason why they were able to recover her search history that she deleted is because the search history, internet search history, does not go into the unallocated space, so it's easier to recover. Whereas again, when you delete text messages, they go in the unallocated space, and the only way to get data from the unallocated space is with a physical extraction. It's the only way. If the other easier non-mobile forensic attempts didn't work. So their excuse is that the Northern Colorado Forensics Laboratory, again, didn't have the software that was capable of performing a physical extraction. Well, I researched it, and I know and found that Colorado CBI has been spending money to purchase this mobile forensic software. Okay, so we know that they're spending money, thousands of dollars, to get this software to solve or to extract data from cell phones or computers, whatever. And let's say they couldn't afford it for some reason. I'm sure they're the FBI or the CBI. They can probably call another department and say, hey, we have this quadruple homicide case. It's a high profile case. It involves children, a pregnant woman. Can we borrow, or can you send over one of your IT guys to do a physical extraction on these cell phones? It's really important. We need to get this person's data off their phone because we think she might have deleted some evidence. And they're really not, that expensive. And you can also buy them on eBay, believe it or not. Or from the actual companies themselves, like XRY or Celebrate. So they thought, apparently, that they could just say that their forensics laboratory, which is, as far as I know, Dr. B brought it up and said that she talked about a little bit that it's a newer facility, and I'm pretty sure that they've got some stuff to do what they need to do there. I don't know that for a fact, but I do know for a fact that they have been spending money yearly on mobile forensics. And like I said, I'm pretty sure that if they just asked another department if they could either send over one of their IT guys, considering that it's a pretty big case, you would think that they would try a little bit harder than just saying that they didn't have. Oh, sorry, we don't have the equipment to perform a physical extraction. But we did do a logical and advanced logical, so at least we tried, right? Well, you did try. But then again, a lot of people are not going to notice something like that unless you're a mobile phones expert, or or you working at a cell phone store, I don't know, whatever, or you spend the amount of time doing the research on it. And luckily, I just happen to know a little bit about cell phones, so that definitely helped. But it's pretty troublesome that they wouldn't even try to do what they needed to do to recover those text messages, and then throw in some excuse in there like they actually did try, or there was nothing they could do about it. So whether or not you or whatever your theory is, That should piss anybody off. And maybe she didn't delete anything of any value. Maybe she wasn't, maybe she really did just want to get him out of her life. But we won't ever know that because they never tried. And that's why we don't have any of Kessinger's deleted text messages. And the ones that we do have that people think they recovered, they didn't recover them. They're screenshots that she gave to Kobach, Kessinger gave to Kobach, that allegedly just happened to appear on her new phone or Android phone when she switched phones. And that's why Dr. B, and that's why it's, and myself, we really want those data dumps because it would explain a lot. But to be honest with you, I don't even think that they exist. And what we did get as a data dump was the first page, just the summary of the XRY. But that tells us nothing because it's not, they only did an advanced logical, which is not going to recover her deleted text messages. And I know that it says that there's 3 that were recovered or something like that. But again, I've done enough research to know that you have to do, and they even admitted it. They even said, we did not have the software available to perform a physical extraction. So right there, they told us that they weren't able to recover them because they didn't do the physical extraction. Hopefully I haven't confused everybody. Sorry, I got on a rant there, but that, I mean, I hope I explained it well enough. I don't know. Oh, night, Kellyanne. Thanks for coming. Yeah, so I mean, they pretty much used an excuse that they didn't have the equipment to recover her text messages, but like I said, I mean, if they actually did the actual investigating, they would have done whatever they could to get those text messages, and they didn't. So, again, that should infuriate anybody just in itself. So if anybody tries to tell me that law enforcement did a proper investigation and did their jobs, don't bother, because that just in itself proves that they did not do what they needed to do to rule out if Kessinger needed to be investigated. And Rourke says, oh, yeah, well, unfortunately, she deleted her text messages, and that unfortunately halted our investigation to get those text messages. So, well, that's unfortunate. But, well, that, yep. Oh, well. But okay, guys, well, I'm going to try and keep this under 2 hours. I'm good. So, thank you all for being here. And thank you again for being patient. I know that I'm always late, but I just try to do these when I have time, a little bit of free time. But yeah, thanks again, and hope you guys are all staying safe. Have a good night.